Ladies and gentlemen, so one small housekeeping announcement. Please feel free to use your mobile phones. There's no ban or restriction, but each time somebody uses his or her mobile phone, there's a contribution of 1,000 rupees to the club welfare fund. No, and this is serious because there are many needy people within the establishment who can do with some help. So please, first and foremost, let's put our hands together for the government of India, for the rat miners, for the Australian expert, for the Indian Army, and everyone who worked so very hard to save the lives of 41 Aam Aadmi. Can we please put our hands together? It's very, it's very awkward and embarrassing to be the thorn between two roses, such as our charming ladies are, which is why I've maintained some distance. But we are really delighted to welcome two Calcuttans at heart, irrespective of where they've chosen to be in various parts of their lives or careers. Renu Di, whom I've had the privilege and pleasure of knowing for the longest, is now Probashi, but her heart, I am told reliably, resides partly with Aman Babu and partly here. Julie Di has been all over the globe, and she pulls rank on me for familial reasons. My sister-in-law and she were in college together, and she extends that affection and right of disciplining me from time to time, basis that love and affection. She's had a stellar career. She went to Jadavpur for her MA, then went on to do a PhD in Toronto, has worked with the Straits Times, taught PhD students, and now contributes to spreading her learning with MA students under the auspices of Calcutta University. And for us at Bengal Club, she holds a special spot. She, like me, is a second generation member, so the ties with the club are extremely strong and familial. And not only that, in the COVID period, when the club was bereft of any footfall, nor was there a sense of bonding amongst the members or feeling that the club is providing any service at all to the community. It was Julie who put together the book club and kept a sense of belonging to the club going. And for that, I think each one of us who is part of the Bengal Club can't thank her enough. I see Keshav here as well, so I'd be failing if I didn't acknowledge that Keshav and I also go back a long way. His dear wife and I were colleagues for many years, and a work of his art, the rickshaw puller, adorns my living room. It's one of the finest pieces of art that we have. So Keshav, here's a shout out for you and an acknowledgement. Thank you for being here. One last thing. Events at the Bengal Club, whether it's a book event or anything else, is only made special by the participation of members and guests such as yourself. I cannot thank you all enough for being here in such abundant numbers. I know it's nothing to do with me, it's to do with the magic of these two charming ladies. Over to Julie.
Good evening and welcome again. It is always a singular honor to celebrate with you a writer or their work. This evening, it is significant that we have a dear friend now, but someone that I looked up to when I was in college as well. So, Mrs. Renu Ray, wonderful to have you. and looking forward to this evening.
Thank you very much.
Very much. Do take a seat. And it would be remiss of me not to thank profusely a man of great generosity of spirit and a vision, and somebody who is a wonderful philanthrop in this city and in this country. It is my great pleasure to thank Mr. Satnam Singh Ahluwalia.
See, serving people for me is easy, but speaking is very difficult because that is their domain. But still, since I have been requested, so I'll say a few words. Well, I have a small foundation, IHA Foundation, and we try to serve the people of this state and Kolkata and India. We've done some wonderful work during pandemic. We've served more than 50 lakh meals during pandemic. And during the second wave, we've saved 2,634 lives by providing help, that is oxygen and medical treatment. This is all because I just want to share that where I was born and brought up in Kolkata, these, standing for each other and helping each other is in your DNA. Still we stand for each other, and that is what we did, like-minded people coming together. My brother Imran Zaki, Rajinder Singh, we all work together, and we, wherever it is needed, whether it is Majarat Bridge or Amphan or say a earthquake, we try to help in whatever way we can. And Calcutta is known for the cultural hub. Let us all join hands and also prove that we stand for humanity also, and we show other people how we feel for each other. Thank you very much, and keep on supporting us in whatever we do.
It is really a pleasure and a great honor to have not just Renu here today, but also Keshav Roy. I think Keshav will be introduced in a few minutes when he comes up, and with great generosity he's agreed to recite a few of Renu Ray's wonderful poems. But more than that, I think you will see the thespian that he is when he recites the poetry. Without further ado, I'd like to just bring to mind that in the scheme of things in this city and in this country, Renu Roy to me is a public intellectual. She wears many hats, and she has done enormous work to push the visual arts, and she's the founder director of Spandan, a reputed cultural foundation in Kolkata, which has presented innumerable stage shows, including full-fledged cultural festivals. Spandan Films was her cinematic initiative with the celebrated filmmaker Aparna Sen in an illustrious career that has spanned more than 4 decades. She also spearheaded her own theatre group and has been associated closely with the theatre as an acclaimed actor, scriptwriter, producer, and director. She's also successfully showcased and promoted several aspiring and established artists in various exhibitions organized over the years. Renu is a recipient of several important theatre and cultural awards. I will just name a few because the litany of awards would carry on for several pages. This includes the Bharat Nirman Kalakar Awards, Women Achievers Award, received from Shri M.K. Narayanan, Governor of West Bengal, the prestigious National Film Festival Award, the Golden Lotus received from the then President of India, Sri Shankar Dayal Sharma, for Best Feature Film for 19 April, directed by the late Rituparna Ghosh. She also broke the glass ceiling, dare I say, when she was elected the first woman president of the Saturday Club Kolkata in its 130-year history. We are not far behind, Renu. We have two set presidents sitting in this room for the Bengal Club. So we are right behind you there. She's also written innumerable articles. This is her third book on poems, The Far Side and Other Poems, which we are going to be discussing today. And she has received an excellent response. If you look at the book, which she has once again very kindly left copies of at the end of the room, those of you who don't have a copy and would like one, she has extended her generosity to give you that gift before you go home, but not before. And I also want to say that she has, with this book, Far Side and Other Poems, been invited to 3 literary festivals, right? Yeah. One is the Tata Steel, the other is the Abdul Kalam.
The
APJ, and the other one is at Jaipur. So that makes a full circle, and I think that's quite a comprehensive introduction to Renu. So Renu, I think we would all like to hear it from the horse's mouth. You are so very much a multidiscipline person with so many accolades, and you have produced films, was actively involved in theatre, spearheaded cultural organizations. Which role is the closest to your heart, and why?
Thank you very much, Julie. It's a great pleasure to be here, and I'll come to the point straight away to answer your question briefly. Yes, it's been a career that has spanned almost 48 years. Very fulfilling, showcasing and presenting artists from all over the country in the field of music and dance and theatre and film. It has been extremely fulfilling, of course, to be associated with some of the best in the country. My stint with theatre has been just as long, in fact longer, perhaps 50 years, so you can guess my age. That has been really very fulfilling too, very satisfying. I started out as an actor and then later did some script writing, some original work, and produced and directed those plays. And we have been directing for the last 10 or 12 years. One of the plays was Simply Shakespeare, which the club was very kind to and very generous of them to have invited here. Some of you may have seen it. Keshav does the solo role, the central role in the play. We do hope that we can showcase it again, so those of you who have missed it, please do see it. I had the privilege, of course, also of being the president of the Saturday Club. That was a place where I learned a lot and which I enjoyed. Now, your question was, are these interconnected? In a way, yes, because the work at Spandan was very creative. It dealt with artists and artistic, creative people. So now that I am into writing, there is, of course, that connection where poetry, where everything is poetry, actually. When one dealt with dance, that was poetry. When it was theater, that was movement, that was creativity. And of course, film and just about every area of the performing arts, the basis is always poetry. So from that point of view, of course, there is a connection, Julie. And of course, one was humbled to have received recognition for this contribution.
Absolutely. In fact, as I said, if you look at the few front page endorsements in Renu's book, the first thing I said was, how did you get these? Amazing. Anyone who's a who's who as a reviewer or a columnist or, personalities have endorsed this book with great kudos. Renu, the question that comes to mind is that, like many authors, many poets who have been incarcerated, and we were incarcerated in a different way during the COVID, right? As a person who's maintained that your mind has always been unfettered, how do you think that the fettering which was brought about by COVID, by imprisoning us, still left you ingenious, inventive, ways in which to express your creativity?
Well, COVID, the pandemic was one of the most difficult and trying times in human history. It was trying for all of us, and most of us were affected in one way or another. There was this overarching element of fear, of anxiety, of apprehension, of suffering, of loss, and even death for many of us who faced the loss of dear ones. And that was a time which compelled all of us, I am no exception, to perhaps introspect about life, its transience, its mutability, its fragility. And though one was indoors, all of us were naturally restricted and confined during the pandemic, but certainly the imagination, the mind was, you used the word unfettered, the mind was unfettered. And I felt at that time that I would like to use this downtime to do something creative and to take advantage of quality time with myself and the family. So that motivated me to write, and I wrote quite frequently and with a lot of love for the subject. Poetry is a bit of a passion. And at the end of a year of that whole period, I found I had a collection, a small volume, and which could be perhaps published. I was very fortunate. The publisher is not here today. She was supposed to come, but was not able to. I was very fortunate to have found a publisher, Renu Mania, now one of the big names in India, who accepted the manuscript. And I think I had about 150 poems at the end of a period of 8 to 9 months. And most of these poems that you find in the book were written during that period. And Julie, for me, that was not only a creative, but it was it was very therapeutic and an extremely meaningful journey.
You know, talking about the poems of death, those are the 3 poems that I am going to be talking about later. And, you've brought the universe of poetry through those 3 poems, for me at least, for women. And I'm talking Virginia Woolf, who committed suicide. I'm talking the great Ted Hughes, the macho Ted Hughes, who we all love as brain candy and arm candy, who really was the cause for Sylvia Plath's death, his wife's death, who stuck her head into an oven. You have a poem like that. We'll come to that later. But what fascinates me, and I would like to ask you, is even though you talk about pain, there is a lot of pain in your poems. There are flashes of hope at the end of the tunnel. So do you think it is the genre of poetry, in the expression of poetry, that helps you see something a little bit more elevated than the personal pain that we all go through?
I think life is generally
Yes.
in this very interesting duality that we live in. There is strife and struggle, there is hope and despair, there is light and dark, and there's joy and peace, and these are all the various lived experiences of our lives. We all go through them. Now, and part of the human reality. So I felt that all of this lends itself very well to poetry, and I included all these themes, these moods, these subjects, and these ideas, these thoughts, feelings, and felt that some poetry needed to be infused into the prosaicness of life. So like rain for parched soil. So and poetry does that to you. And if you dive deep into yourself, one will find that one can express things which life is all about. And of course, one also is careful that there should be a balance between a deeply felt emotion and one's need to create an objective distance from that emotion for it to become poetry.
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, that's where the trick is, I think, between a poem that goes overboard. The big challenge, as Kazuo Ishiguro says, is to hold back and, in the British way, be as understated as possible.
Yes, yes, of course. Of course, just feeling and visualizing is not enough. One needs to discipline oneself and choose words and keep an eye on language interplay and stay within the parameters of what poetry actually means.
Right. Renu, in a climate where, as someone who's taught, was privileged to teach in the Western Academy for so many years, and English and literature and poetry, and now coming back here to the Calcutta University and Jadavpur University, and we have someone here right in front of me who's a poet on her own right and is from Jadavpur, Camellia Paul. My question to you would be, I am constantly disappointed in the dearth of passion in their holding a book and saying, this is fantastic, I've just read it. So in the age of Instagram and social media and everything else, when I walk into class and I say, do you remember Jane Eyre? And I get this blank stare. What was that, ma'am? Well, how would you encourage young people to come back to reading poetry? One way I do it is to say, Just start in the morning for 15 minutes and keep a journal. What did you dream last night? Write it down. If it was an erotic dream, if it was a good dream, if it was a dream telling you you're going to get so much money, write it down. That's a start. So what would you say? How would you encourage these young people to write?
One of the ways, Julie, is I think they must read first. They must read a lot. They must read a variety. There is every nature of poem, and poems have dealt with, and poets have dealt with just about every theme conceivable. And if they have the inclination, actually there is poetry in everybody. You just have to, it's like gold in a mine, you know, you have to mine it and plunge into your depths, and whether you use imagination or visualization, or you have to ultimately also use the devices of, say, the figures of speech. You have to understand that just feeling and visualizing are not enough. You have to use symbolism, imagery, metaphors, similes, assonance, alliteration, and you know these things once you read about poetry, the grammar of poetry perhaps. You don't have to follow any strict metrical pattern, but you can create a spontaneity and let it resonate with you, and once it resonates with you within, it is bound to resonate with the reader. So read and keep writing till you refine it and you come to a level where you say, that feels like a poem.
Absolutely. You know, one thing I don't mind sharing here with scholars and with my book club team here and all of you, wonderful people, is that there's so much available by way of YouTube recordings of Shakespeare, you know. Yeah. Keshav is right here. We'd love to hear his views later after he's done his reading for us. But when you listen and when you watch King Lear, for instance, holding Cordelia in his arms, the dead daughter, and what spews out of him is so completely gripping that I've had kids cry in class. But they don't want to read it per se, A, B, C, D. They want the visual and the audio way out. But I think it's still okay, as long as they enjoy the poetry.
Yes, it's okay. But certainly the classical,
Yes.
Way is to be able to understand the styles, the content,
Sure.
the intent of poets by reading them.
Yes.
And then if you emulate, it's fine, a particular school, or if you are able to do something by yourself as original, it will come.
Yeah.
Once the effort is made.
So with all that we've been talking about, I think it might be a great idea if you would read, yeah? And then you
Tell
can
me.
intersperse it with your thoughts, and then we'll go through the evening.
What I'll do is I will read, is that okay, the title of the book, the title of the Far Side, which is the title of the book. And perhaps that may be a start. The world is here and now, and wherever I want it to be. Here all streams run together, and all the streams stand still. All begins where it appears to end. All of time flows forever, and all of time stands still. Here all doors open inwards, again and again. All worlds dissolve in a moment, and all worlds appear again. I feel the blur of tenuous lines, between the far side and the near side, where I climbed to the peaks of my rest, to be a part of all that is, sway softly on the only path left, from all the paths the pilgrims chose, and know what a seagull in flight achieves in its whiteness. A poem called My City, a bit grim, but it's not necessarily about Kolkata, but it definitely was provoked by the violence that took place after the polls. And similar things happening in other parts of the country, which create anguish. My city, a trembling night wakes to a morning of dust and tears in my burning city. Anguish hangs from the roofs. My river drowns in its own spate. The sky, a sea of smoke and flame. The night is waiting to pounce. Words of woe tumble over each other. This half-forgotten entity crumbles under its columns to the stench of turpitude and sounds of brutality. Its people, demeaned and defaced, moan in solitude. The veneer cannot hold. Something is breaking and will give way. Its rules have changed. It may not cross a tomorrow. Its sordidness assails me. I look up to where it had once held its heights, chiseled into its symbol of glory, the quintessence of blossoming. Around it now have sprung barbed wires. I shrink from this wreckage and its profanity. The shadows grow longer and longer. Its own protectors, with hollowed out eyes, have punched holes in its soul and rendered it irrelevant.
You know, before I let you read the next poem, I just wanted to share with you that while Renu was reading, I was thinking, and I think many of you would remember, Shudotta, you're sitting there, I expect you to remember, William Butler Yeats's poem, Turning and turning in the widening gyre. The falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart. The center cannot hold. And it's remarkable how Renu has possibly not even thought about Yeats, and yet concurrently has talked about a city which is coming to a position where its citizens don't communicate, or a country where the idea of nation is broken. And there is so much strife, and there is so much anxiety about what the future holds. So the word hold is what struck the light bulb for me in her poem. Wonderful, Renu. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. I'll just do one more poem.
Yes,
and
please.
this is,
Please.
I seem to be doing some very morbid ones, but anyway, this is something I open to. Reflection. There is an emptiness in the reflection. My mirror has unseemly doubts. I stumble across doors, crossing over their own thresholds into diminishing spaces. I will meet you in the stillness of a raging storm, in dew-smudged dreams. I see you sneaking up on me through the haze of a dusty mirage. Yours is a clandestine gaze that lingers at the edge of my unwillingness. How long can I bear the grief of frayed purposes, or wait without hope for the winter of your forgiveness?
One more.
I have another manuscript ready, Julie, in the meanwhile, which is almost ready for publishing again. And this is slightly different in the sense that most of the poems of my new manuscript are very short. Not exactly haiku, which of course again has its own grammar, but whatever needs to be said has to be said in just 4 lines. It is easy because it's short, and yet difficult because you have to say everything in a very short span. So I'm just reading out, giving you a sample of the new work that I hope will be published, and I hope my publisher won't send my manuscript back to me. But it's called Submerged. Water seeps into my night and submerges my lyrics in my sleep. I suddenly see myself hawking wet poems on flooded streets. Okay, just one more because it's short. Picture, I could turn into a vast river to flow into your sea. Why did I find dearth in the deep hollow of my waterless pitcher?
Wow. Thank you, Renu. That was most enriching and thoughtful and thought-provoking. It's a great pleasure, it's an honor, and I'm really pleased, I'm really excited. Keshav Roy, may we call you to the podium to read 2 of your mother's poems, and then a surprise for us, I think.
Keshav, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Keshav is somewhat related.
Somewhat related.
I wish to thank him again, if I haven't thanked you already. I think I may have forgotten to. He has done a lot of all the illustrations of the book. Simple illustrations. They're all symbolic and abstract illustrations like these for the book.
Is the cover also yours?
No, cover.
Okay.
He doesn't want to claim.
Okay. So I just wanted to quickly put Keshav on our page. Keshav Roy is a consummate stage actor. Just saying stage actor really doesn't do him any justice. I can always think of him as being on stage at the National Theatre, at the Littleton playing Macbeth. Very easy. So he has to his credit more than 30 major productions. He has worked with nationally well-known thespians, Nasiruddin Shah, Girish Karnad, Benjamin Gilani, and the list goes on, Tom Alter, Alik Padamsi, etc. And Carol Fisher of UCLA, to name a few. Keshav is also a professional painter who, as you heard from Mr. Manoj Mahanka, my dear friend, is sought after as a painter and is represented in his paintings in people's homes and other institutions. He practices classical impressionisms in oil charcoal, French dry pastels, gouache, and egg tempera. His paintings are a part of notable public and private collections, and now we will see how he wears the other hat.
Thank you, Julie, for your kind words. Greatly appreciate you having me. It's a privilege sharing space with so many brilliant minds and eminent personalities whom I have so deeply admired over the years. And this distinguished gathering, many of you so widely known for your own notable achievements. Satnamba in particular. At the outset, I'd like to thank the author for including my illustrations in her book. And so, Julie, may I take the liberty of, somewhat answering your question, if I may put it like that, from the perspective of a painter and actor. I'm sure most of us will agree that all forms of art, all creative forms, have a certain, an unvoiced commonality, this unspoken communion, this unarticulated bond, if you like, all depending upon the cause you want to portray and the depth you decide to indulge in. Now, for me personally, poetry is the crown of literature, the mother tongue of the human race. And the job of the poet is to render the world, to see it and report it without loss, without perversion. Painting, you see, Julie, is based on addition. You put in a stroke, then you put in another stroke, and you keep on painting till somehow it all adds up to tell a story. Poetry, conversely, is firmly founded on attrition, where an insight takes the form of language, a lot of language, and then you subtract as much as possible to arrive at the greatest economy of expression. Purged of all the non-essentials, the best words in the best order, language in its most distilled and powerful form. For the computer geeks here, poetry would be akin to the zip file of literature, where a capable poet can pack in that much information, that much knowledge, that much experience, that much imagery, as the author was saying, into a relatively tiny space. Look at the tercets, for example, a 3-line poem, the haikus Renu was just talking about. Let me see if I can loosely translate one for you from the top of my head. This one goes like this. She is, she was, I am. A lifetime's worth of emotions packed into 6 words, 3 lines. That's Matsuo Basho for you, the great grandmaster of the Japanese haiku from the 16th century. Words are as much a medium as paints and pencils. And both the artist and the painter, I would say, work toward distilling ideas, thoughts, beliefs, reactions into a particular form. In art, line, color, and shape, for example, prevail. In poetry, words, rhythm, and space create the form. So, for example, a sculpture requires light, maybe from above. A painting has its own light and shade. But poetry encompasses infinite possibilities which neither the painter nor the sculptor can command. Poetry is when an emotion has found its thought, Julie, and that thought has found its words. And in Renu Roy's case, even though I say so myself, every word bears its weight. So you have to read her poems very slowly to be able to enjoy the whys and hows of her craft. Shakespeare himself said, the poetry is energy that is transferred from where the poet got it, by way of the poem itself, all the way over to the reader. So I say, if you cannot be a poet, be the poet. The verbal and visual arts have long been wedded in the critical mind, and poets and artists sometimes turn to one another for inspiration. Ut pictura poesis, as is painting, so is poetry. Can you imagine there are more than 2,500 paintings, and famous paintings of that, based on Shakespeare's plays alone? The sheer numbers indicate the influence authors may have had on artists. An obvious example, and a very beautiful one at that too, Julie, if you remember, would be, John William Waterhouse's The Lady of Shalott, inspired by a poem of the same name by Alfred Lord Tennyson. Or another example from the same era would be John Everett Millais' The Portrait of Ophelia from Shakespeare's Hamlet. Or even Cy Twombly, the great American painter, his paintings literally have handwritten words and phrases on them, quoting poets. So many of them. Keats, Sappho, Homer, Virgil, later on even Octavio Paz. But the road runs both ways, of course, and where they say that sometimes the poet turns to paintings for their inspiration. And interesting questions arise as we contemplate the relationship between the poem and the picture. Sylvia Plath, for example, drew inspiration from just about everywhere.
Yep.
The Italians, Giorgio de Chirico, the French, Paul Gauguin, the naive postmodern impressionist Rousseau, Pablo Picasso, the Cubist, the Swiss-German expressionist Paul Klee. We can go on and on and on. And probably spending more time than I'm allowed, Julie.
If I may just jump in there, I can't resist it. Even a filmmaker like Michael Ondaatje in The English Patient is referring to frescoes in the Italian cathedral.
There you go. Exactly. So we've got our thoughts embedded everywhere as creative people. And why do we thirst for answers to questions like what is art, what is poetry, what is music, reading, what it be? I feel that most questions will remain unanswered, but each creative form has its own ability to seize, to capture the essence of life. Each has its own ability to inspire, to delight, to inform, to console, to mystify, to educate, to elevate. Beautiful ways of telling you everything without saying anything. So may I take the liberty, Julie, of reading a poem from the far side. It's on page 92, for those of you who may have a copy of the book. This piece was able to lift me out of the ordinary into a more illuminating reality, and I feel a certain quiet oneness with it. It's called Kashmir. Kashmir. The brooding valley straddles an untold story of the treachery of time. This land disemboweled by the tyranny of dead years, its people once filled with pride now diminished. Renegade storms and doused flames have gouged holes in their hearts, lost in the sorrow of dispossession, in an anguish deeper than anger. The blazing chinars burned unconsumed, soundless in their fall. The squalor of wreckage, the spillage of life, in embattled hours, scream again and again. In silence goes colorless and cannot be retrieved, even in its embers.
Beautifully read.
So, here we are, ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
May I request
Yes.
to give us a piece from Shakespeare, perhaps a short?
William Shakespeare. Well, you've got me on the wrong foot, Julie Lee, total state of unpreparedness, but nonetheless I'll try. William Shakespeare, what can one say about William Shakespeare? It would be audacious, if I may say so, to even attempt a definition of his greatness. But for the time being, I have no better way of summing it up all for him other than to quote the words of the great Ben Jonson himself, who called him thou star of poets, and of course that he was not of an age, but for all time. And I hope I'm not taking up more time than I'm allowed. So, this is, I try and render a short but important piece for you. This is just a minute or two long, so no more. So you have to bear with me. Ladies and gentlemen, about 600 years ago, there was a riot in Trafalgar Square, and the cry was about strangers. There are strangers in our midst. They're eating our food, they're taking our jobs, they're marrying our women, they're eating our food. Send them back to wherever they came from. Now, the book of Sir Thomas More ladies and gentlemen, is the only surviving manuscript of William Shakespeare. It is also the only evidence and the only example of Shakespeare's handwriting of any script in existence. Just one page, and it's this speech. So little known, with no evidence either that it was ever published or produced or performed, and yet lies at the heart of Shakespeare's humanity. Banned for 400 years, this old Shakespearean piece is relevant for refugee rights even today. So, xenophobic Londoners pour out into the city streets. An aggressive mob begged for the illegal immigrants, the so-called strangers, to be thrown out of England. And Thomas More, if you remember him from A Man for All Seasons, who at this point in time is the sheriff of London, presents the case for peace. He pleads with the crowd to accept the asylum seekers in their midst, even warning them. But the cry once more is that the strangers must be removed, and Thomas More replies, "Grant them removed. And grant that this your noise it chip down all the majesty of England." Imagine that you see the wretched strangers, the babies in the backs of their poor luggage plodding with the ports and coasts for transportation, and you sit as kings in your desires, authority was silenced by your brawl, and you in the rough, and your opinions clothed. What had you got? I'll tell you. You were taught how insolence a strong hand should prevail. How order should be quelled. And by this pattern, not one of you should live an Asian man, for other ruffians as their fancies wrought, with self-same hands, self-right and self-raised, would shark on you. And men like ravenous fishes feed on one another. Oh, desperate as you are, wash your foul eyes with tears, in the same hands that you lift up against the peace, lift up for peace. And your unwavering knees meet them your feet to kneel, to be forgiven. You'll put down strangers. Kill them. Cut their throats. Possess their houses. And need the majesty of law and lion sleeping like a hound. Say now. The king, as he is clement, if the offended wall should so much come to short of your great trespass as but to banish you, whither would you go? What country by the nature of your error should give you harm? Go you to France, to Flanders, to any German province, to Spain, to Portugal, anywhere that not adheres to England, why, you must needs be strangers. Will you be pleased to find a nation of such barbarous temper, that breaking out into hideous violence would not afford you to bolden earth, when they testimizing as your throats, spurn you like dogs, and like as of the God, own not, obey not you, nor that the elements would all appropriate you, your comfort, but charge it unto them. What would you think to be thus used? This is the stranger's case. And this, your mountainish inhumanity. William Shakespeare.
Dr. Harish Mehta, your next stop. So, very quickly, we are on the right side of time still, but we have to watch our minutes pass by. Harish has actually just finished a collection of poems on his area, which is the Vietnam War. But be that as it may, he has an MA and a PhD from McMaster University in Canada. He's taught at McMaster University for many years, University of Toronto and Trent. He did graduate studies at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill after a bachelor's degree from the University of Lucknow. So he's very much a Lucknow boy. He's the author most recently of People's Diplomacy of Vietnam, Soft Power in the Resistance War. Currently, he's the editor-in-chief, founding trustee of Rising Asia Journal and Rising Asia Foundation, and guest editor of the very privileged Historian Journal of the University of South Florida. Take it away.
I'm a historian, and therefore I would like to think, where does poetry come from? Where does it come from? So I was doing some research for this evening, and I discovered that poetry is 2500 BC old, and that the first poems or epics and that the poetry is how we carried our histories, our oral traditions. So we were speaking poetry years before we learned to write or before text came. Our histories were carried by, and our memories were transferred through poetry. And the great epics across cultures bear testament to that. And therefore, a lot of what Renu writes about, her poems on oppression, on being enslaved, bring to mind the syncretism, the cross connections between a poet and another poet. So you have Renu now writing in some of her work about the enslaved peoples, but you have the whole story of enslavement is very old. And the story of poets writing about enslaved peoples through history is very old. It is not poetry that celebrates being enslaved, there's nothing to celebrate, but it's a poetry of remembering. To remember as in recollect, and remember as to again put together that which was in danger of being dismembered. So to remember the various limbs that have been scattered through time. And therefore I remember what one of the great African American poets, which resonates with Renu Roy's work, is Langston Hughes, who wrote in his poem Remember, and I shall read, my memory doesn't allow me to remember all of Hughes, but remember, the days of bondage and remembering do not stand still. Go to the highest hill and look down upon the town where you are yet a slave. Look down upon any town in Carolina or any town in Maine for that matter, and you will see what I mean for you to see. The white hand, the thieving hand, the white face, the lying face, the white power, the unscrupulous power that makes you the hungry, wretched thing you are today. So Langston Hughes, and there's a whole genre and generation of African American poets that talked about slavery and wanted us to keep remembering it. Longfellow, even William Wordsworth had something to say about the natives that were conquered by the white settlers.
Pick that cup. Move along now. Come on, Ellis. Drive them niggas. Pick that gun. Move along now. Here. What you doing, boy? Come on.
240 for Bob.
Sun gon' set here. Sun down the mountain. Sun gon' set here. Sun down the mountain. Sun gon' set here. Sun down the mountain. Teach me, Lord.
Teddy, get him water.
I just work here. I just work here.
Shut up.
I just work here.
Shut up.
Lord, teach me about this world. I'll be back here.
Nigga, get up.
I'll be back here. I'll be back here.
What you looking at, boy? Keep picking, boy.
Might just chip in here. This is what is so wonderful about poetry. The poem that Harish is going to read from Renu's work is actually far removed, one would think, geographically. But in the mind, the connection that a reader makes with the poem and the poet transcends time and space.
Renu's poem called The Cry. In the cry of my heart I say, go and hold the enslaved. Tell them of my contempt for the oppressor. Speak against the tyranny of those in chains, smothered by their own voices. Put up a trenchant defense for the disowned and unadorned, the unloved and stricken, who trudged in a drugged stupor of disheveled pride. Seek out the self-possessed. Tell them their brothers languish in the nameless desolation of despair. Sledgehammer my point home. This pierced heart will mourn the loss of justice and humanity till the ungentle end this charade of false disdain, and the cry of our brothers begins to define them.
Maybe the other one you want very quickly so that,
Okay.
yeah.
The other poem that I should read, the shorter one, it's called Rage. His words fail from his high perch. He is plowed down by his own wrath that seeks him out in the old marsh of unfounded rage. There was no flaw to his earth. Something breaks within into 1,000 smithereens of wakefulness. He knows he has spent unchaste years chasing the edge of a blind curve, nursing the burden of indignation in the darkest glades of mortality.
It's my great pleasure now to call upon Rohini Roy Chowdhury. Such a strange connection. Her father and I went to Jadavpur to do our masters yonks ago.
I'd like to thank all of you for being here. It has really meant a lot to us, and for your interest and your presence and your support of events such as these. My thanks, my most heartfelt thanks goes to IHA Foundation, in particular Mr. Satnam Singh Aluwalia, for supporting this event, for sponsoring it, for wholeheartedly giving us his generosity in terms of not only the sponsorship, but all our endeavors. And similarly, of course, my friend Imran Zaki, who is part of the same team, and both of them are part of Faces, and so is Rajinder Singh. Three of you, my good friends, thank you for coming, and thank you for your support over the years. It's just not today, and it means a lot to me personally. And of course, very grateful that you have you've made this event possible, and you're very much a part of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Over to Rohini.
Thank you. Well, the evening is not over yet, but quite rightly, thanks. Without your help, we could really not have done this. Thank you very much again. We have still got Rohini Rai Chowdhury to sing you some really touching songs, and she marries it with the ideas that we've been talking about, that Keshav and Harish and Renu and I have been trying to discuss. And then Shrayan is on the guitar. He's a lovely young man, and he plays the guitar for pleasure, he says. And then we have a young Kathak dancer who has very kindly been looking at Renu's poems from the point of view of Kathak, that is the rhythm of time. And most of Renu's poems are about time, are about impermanence. And I think you'll enjoy that. So hang in there, and I think we'll give you a nicer part of another genre of music and dance.
Hello. Is the guitar audible? And is my voice audible? First and foremost, I would like to thank Renu Auntie for making me a part of this wonderful evening, and also for the book that she has sent me to read. I was fascinated by the poems, and thank you, Julie Auntie, for this wonderful introduction. I have with me Shroyon, a very young and talented and versatile musician and singer who will accompany me on guitar. The songs that I've chosen today are my reactions to some of Renu Auntie's poems. One is The Cry, which was just read. So that was kind of a protest. That was kind of a voice of protest, anguish. And the song that I have chosen talks about the ideal world that John Lennon had imagined. So I'll start with Imagine. Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us, above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there is no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will be as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. A brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will be as one. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one. Thank you. Thank you so much. And the next song is, again, my reaction to the poem that Keshavda read out, Kashmir. I've been to Kashmir so many times, and whenever I've walked through the streets of Srinagar and Sonmarg, Gulmarg, every time what struck me was it's such a beautiful, beautiful place. But it's always ridden with violence. It's, as the poem says, that it's disemboweled, and the men have been diminished to such. How do I express this? I mean, their state of misery strikes me every time I visit Kashmir. So this is the song which I thought would be my reaction to this poem of yours, Renu Auntie. Where have all the flowers gone? Long time passing. Where have all the flowers gone? Long time ago. Where have all the flowers gone? Young girls pick them every fun. When will they ever learn? When will they ever learn? Where have all the young girls gone? Long time passing. Where have all the young girls gone? Long time ago. Where have all the young girls gone? Gone for husbands, everyone. When will they ever learn? When will they ever learn? Where have all the husbands gone? Long time passing. Where have all the husbands gone? Long time ago. Where have all the husbands gone? Gone for soldiers, everyone. When will they ever learn? When will they ever learn? Where have all the soldiers gone? Long time passing. Where have all the soldiers gone? Long time ago. Where have all the soldiers gone? Gone to graveyards, everyone. When will they ever learn? When will they ever learn? Where have all the graveyards gone? Long time passing. Where have all the graveyards gone? Long time ago. Where have all the graveyards gone? Gone to flowers, everyone. When will they ever learn? When will they ever learn? Where have all the flowers gone? Long time passing. Where have all the flowers gone? Long time ago. Where have all the flowers gone? Young girls pick them every one. When will they ever I don't think I have any more time. So I think this is, sure, I would love to be back. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you.
It would be nice to open up the floor. Shibhuti, if we can organize these chairs to be removed. Thanks. Thank you. And this too, please. Thank you. If you can get this moved as well. My first question would be to Anju Munshi. Anju, we've heard so much about Kashmir and people's opinions on the poem. Would you care to say a few words on Renu's poetry today? Anju Munshi, Anasya Pal, Shudatta are very regular in our book club. So please go ahead.
Thank you, Julie. Hearty and a big congratulations to Renu for a brilliant composition of words, organized lines, and extremely, disciplined emotions that talk about many things. I must say that you have a very elusive quality about the lines that you compose, and as a reader, it's very difficult to pinpoint as to what exactly are the emotions that underline the thought, because there is a variety of emotions that define your lines, the composed lines. Having said that, before I forget, my favorite poems are Trellis, Gardens, Kashmir, and Submerged. Kashmir definitely takes the top position because I come from that place. And very aptly you have described and gone into details about the predicament of the locals there and the political scene and the political state of mind that people have, which actually there's politics in every mind. So I think that was very impressive. Having said that, the words hint at atrocities, pain, and conflict, not in one poem, but most of them, which you yourself explained very well. There is a reason. My question to you is, when you talk about, phrases like a splintered world and cartwheels into annihilation, seething wasteland of carnage and destruction, and also stricken blood-soaked earth and other things, is it the physical atrocity, or is this a confined emotion that is trying to escape? Are you writing about the physicality of the brutality and the atrocities, or is this any kind of a confined, a trapped emotion which is trying to find a way out, which is trying to escape? Thank you so much.
Well, whenever one talks about atrocities or brutality or anguish that emerges from that, it would be felt first at the emotional level. And of course, if there is physical abuse or violence, that too forms a part of that turbulence. It could be war. It could be disowned people. It could be people who are driven out of their own land, like the Kashmiri Pandits were in Kashmir. It basically, we're talking about despair and desolation and a certain hopelessness, which does first become a living reality within, because of the circumstances outside. Any other question? Ashok, I'm always afraid of his questions because they're so intellectual that first it takes me a while to understand them, but we will try. Yeah. Ask me one simple one, please, Ashok.
Well, I have a comment first, and then
sure.
I'll...
Why don't you come up here?
ask
And
the
for those
question.
of you, pardon the interruption, who are leaving or about to leave, please do take a book. Those who have it, enjoy it, but those who haven't yet got a copy, All the copies are signed and are there at the entrance, so don't forget to take a copy. Yes, Ashok.
Yes, I'd just like to say that the famous poet, Professor P. Lal,
Yes.
who also won the Padma Shri for his poetry and the Jawaharlal Nehru Award for International Understanding, was once asked what poetry meant to him. I mean, one of the questions that we often ask ourselves is, what is poetry? I know Dr. Mehta talked about where poetry came from, and that's where poetry started. But what is poetry is a very relevant question which is not answered. But Professor P. Lal did give an answer. And what was his answer? He said, I have a mantra for poetry. You know, from the Indian sensibility, I have a mantra. I call it the 3 M's. The first M is music. You know, we just heard a beautiful song. Poetry has to have music of whatever kind. It doesn't have to be an end rhyme. Like
Can we have some silence, please? This is a courtesy to the speaker. Thank you.
You know, Lewis Carroll in Through the Looking Glass has beautiful end rhymes, like he thought he saw an elephant that played on a fife. He looked again and found it was a letter from his wife. At length I realized, he said, the bitterness of life. So that's one kind of music. Or it could be no end rhymes, just prosody, as in Shakespeare, as Keshav so beautifully brought out. The Merchant of Venice begins with a few lines which express Antonio's sadness. He says, in sooth, I know not why I am so sad. It wearies me. You say it wearies you. But how I caught it, found it, or came by it, I am to learn. And such a want which sadness makes of me, that I have much ado to know myself. That's another kind of it. But music, nonetheless, prosodic or with end rhymes. That's one. The first M of the mantra. The second is milieu or milia, the environment. That is brilliantly expressed in Renu's poetry. All the poems have a context. This context is very important. And when I say milieu or milia, I'm not just referring to the environment, but also to the zeitgeist, meaning the spirit of the times. And she wrote it during the COVID times. And we are passing through a turbulent time. War. So, milia, the second one. And the third, which Renu's mentioned in her dialogue, is metaphor. Poetry has to be metaphoric. That's where it moves away from the prosaic. And I quote Shakespeare again, and he talks about music, but he's actually talking about metaphor when he says, the man that hath no music in himself, nor is not moved by stratagems of spoils, is fit for treason. The motions of his spirit are as dull as night, and his affections dark as Erebus. So he's talking about the music of the spheres there. So my question to you now, having made that small introduction, paraphrasing Professor Lal, the mantra of music, milieu, and mantra, and metaphor, you have all of these in your poems. Would you say that you have a partiality towards any one of them? And I add one more, drama, because you're so attuned to theater. And the word theater is so interesting now in these war times, because in war, the theater is where you actually fight the war. The word theater has this meaning too. So how would you react? I mean, which is most important to you, the music in it, the metaphor in it, the milieu, or is it the drama?
I think poetry encapsulates and encompasses most of these. In fact, all of them, sometimes like all under one roof. When you say the metaphor, I think first, the poem begins in a wordless space, from within. It's unnameable, an unnamed space, the feeling, the emotion, the thought, the idea, the visualization. Then one proceeds to give expression to those feelings. So it's in the space of words. And then, for both the poet and the reader, it moves sometimes beyond the words. So that's why a poem may linger longer than beyond having read it. So, like Salman Rushdie, he said that poetry is the crown of literature, to name the unnameable and to prevent the world from going to sleep. So it may not have answered your question accurately.
No, it does, it does.
Thank you, Ashok. That was very wonderful.
Thank you, Ashok. And Ashok wrote the foreword for my book, so I'm deeply grateful for that. Also grateful to, before I forget to mention, though none of them are here today, Shashi Tharoor, no less, wrote an endorsement for my book. Amit Chaudhary, the very prolific writer. Pavan Varma, who has written 42 books, also obliged. Ira Pandey, and Sanjay Baru, the author of The Accidental Prime Minister. So I'm grateful for all of them.
Endorsements really, they go right ahead of you.
No, I'm truly humbled and grateful to all of them.
Renu is our Kathak dancer. Please go ahead.
So we'll ask for your patience for another 10 minutes. Thank you.
Yeah, Renu, congratulations on your book.
Thank you so much.
Like Julie said, it's one of our book club events, and we read your book. And I did pause to wonder, because we did literature which came out of the lockdown earlier. We did Ben Okri, who also wrote in the lockdown. We did Pico Iyer, and now we're reading your work. And I just was curious to understand your approach towards your craft, considering that you addressed old emotions and times traveled long back, and you managed to harness them in quite a bit of filigreed finesse in your artistry in the span of a year of lockdown. So how did you recollect and put to verse so many old experiences? Plus, there was also a kind of structure to the way the poems flowed, like a lot of sorrow at the beginning to a kind of evening out, and then a little bit of lift, probably as an ode to the gentleman you devoted the book to and recognized his love. So can you just talk about how you managed to put all of that together in that time? Yeah, personal history with that time capsule of a year of lockdown.
The book is dedicated to my husband, who pretended to read my book, but I don't think he read it, the whole thing. Sorry, what was your last question? How did basically these are all done in the space, of course, of that 1 year. It's a long time to recollect so many things, experiences, other people's experiences also, emotions, thoughts, to touch your own consciousness, to be able to dive into your depths and try to give expression to whatever is going on within, and hope that it will resonate not with only with yourself, but also with the reader. My poems don't have any grand purpose. It came out in a kind of a flow, and the aim is to enjoy the process of writing and hoping that not only will it resonate with the reader, but it will also mean something to whoever reads the poems. So, like I said, it was just something that happened, and it keeps happening. I mean, it's something you recollect, you remember, you recapitulate, and it becomes a poem.
So did you feel like from the origin till the final poem in script, was there a change in the remembering from what it was originally as a germ in your brain and then eventually as a piece of work? How much did it change?
Well, I think it was one continuous process because there are many themes. You know, one was going from theme to theme, and there was not very much any deliberate planning. So the expression or the articulation took place more or less spontaneously, without, like I said, too many strictures, too many any design or pattern or any great aim. I wanted to. It happens when you write poetry that you're touching a part of yourself that is important, and you're getting in touch with your consciousness, and that is meaningful. That journey is meaningful.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so we've been waiting for a performance, and I think it wouldn't be too early to call upon our Kathak exponent tonight. Where are you, my dear? Her name is Sreshtha Das Chaudhary. Come, Sreshtha. Sreshtha is going to do a pure dance piece. Those of you who know Bharatanatyam, you will know the idea of Tillana, which is thus rhythm and time and the cycle of time. So bowls and tihais is what she's going to do. Enjoy and go ahead. If you want to, do you want to say anything in Bangla? Ingreji jaiche.
I mean, when we talk about time, as a dancer, for me, it's the tal and the matras. So today I'm going to do teen tal. So my time will be 16 beats, 16 matra. And I'll do the normal pure dance, starting with heart, followed by tora, a little bit of bhav, and ending with paran bol. Thank you.
much. It was very, very nice. Short, and brevity is the soul of wit. The last little bit we have on the program is our dear librarian who's been with us for over 2 decades, Mrs. Shebonti Sengupto, with her vote of thanks.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Library Subcommittee of Bengal Club, I would like to thank Renu Roy Madam for gifting us such a brilliant poetic evening. My thanks to Mr. Keshav Roy for making us realize why we need to read William Shakespeare, the greatest output of the Elizabethan age, even in this 21st century. My thanks to Dr. Harish Mehta for his brilliant insights, and thanking Rohini Roy Chaudhary for her songs and inspiring, I think, each one of us to dream and to be an optimist. And thanks to the young dancer for such a brilliant performance. And of course, last but not the least, my special thanks to Dr. Julie Banerjee Mehta for all her endeavor, her meticulous planning and execution of the book club meets. Thank you, each one of us, each one of you for being such a brilliant audience, and good night.